Hey everybody, today's another computer job. I've got a few of these desktops around, and in the past you've seen I did my performance one for video editing. I did kind of a mid-range, fairly powerful but mid-range general purpose desktop. Today I got a little different one. This is going to be, I'm going to call this is the budget simple one. Low cost, it doesn't have to do a lot. So I got another one of these with one of my Antec cases that I've had around for years and years. But once again, we're in this thing where Microsoft is transitioning Windows from 10 to 11, and hardware that's a few years old, in this case 10, 12 years old or so, isn't supported anymore, and so I have to update it. And it really kind of bugs me to have to take perfectly good functioning hardware and throw it away or upgrade it, but it is what it is. This particular computer I use for video monitoring. It's part of its function is really a DVR. It's a digital video recorder. I've got some security cameras, and it takes all that video and writes it to a hard drive, and I have software that's proprietary to the cameras, and it doesn't run on Linux, it only runs on Windows, and so I got to do that. That said, it really isn't a hugely powerful requirement. The compute power and strength isn't really that critical. It's not like crunching large amounts of video. It's processing, it's bringing in video streams and writing them to a hard drive, sends it to the screen so you can look at the cameras. I've got some other things. It manages some home automation things that I have that turn on lights and sensors and thermostats and all of that. So this would be a good basic functional, the average person who's not, I'll call it a power user, this thing just run like wonderful. So anyway, what was in the old one here is an i7 Intel, vintage about 2013 or 14. It was a pretty good one at the time, and 8 gigabytes of memory and all of that. But there's no video card. It used the onboard video in the Intel chip. Well, today things have progressed, and as some of you have seen in my previous ones, I've been using AMD. They seem to be pretty energy efficient, pretty powerful, price is right, and so I've kind of been on a chain. And you also know that I seem to like Gigabyte boards. I did a bunch of shopping for other ones, but I ended up back with a Gigabyte board. Even though this case will handle an ATX full-size board, I elected, I have like half a dozen expansion slots, and I'm not using any of them. I'm not even using the video card slot. When I was looking at price tag, and I said, budget build, this one says it's a gaming plus Wi-Fi. A lot of them, it's like the Wi-Fi doesn't cost you very much, you might as well go ahead and get it. But it's a good board. One of the things I ran into on my last build was if you get too fancy a board though, and for the bigger processors, you end up having to change your power supply to get more terminals. So I selected one that will use the power supply that I've got in here that's 10 plus years old. It has more than enough capability for me to run my cameras, and it's got USB ports, it's got all the good stuff, and it's an AMD AM5 socket. AMD's got some fairly new processors out. This is a Ryzen, this is a Ryzen 5. It's an 8500G, so it's 6 cores, 12 threads, and it has upgraded video on it. So it ought to be. They even claim that it can do some gaming, so it's not a bad processor at all. And the price was right. This was kind of like the cheapest Ryzen 5 I could lay my hands on. And so, hey, that was really good. So when I say a budget package, motherboard was $139. I mean, this is like in March of 2025. So $139, whereas my other performance boards were about $200. One of the other things was, so for $139 you got the board, and there were some cheaper boards, but they were, Newegg was offering a deal with free memory thrown in. and it's Team Group T-Force Delta Gaming. Newegg claimed it was a $75 value. It's 16 gigabytes of DDR5 6000. So I went with that instead of, normally my go-to has been G-Skill, but I looked this up. It's apparently very good memory. It's on the board's approved list. It's been tested. It had good reviews. So I took their freebie. The processor was 148, I think. It was under $150. So the whole thing together was just a little over 300 with tax. And, you know, again, for what I'm going to do with it, it's the right thing to do. When I built this originally, I said I had an i7. I thought I was going to use it for more powerful stuff, and so I went a little bit big. Well, the other reason to go big somewhat is that, you know, if you're going to keep a machine around for 10 or 15 years, you'd like it to, you know, go through its life cycle and be good. In any case, it's time for it to go. It's time for me to move to this. So I can move to Windows 11 and, you know, Windows 10 works just fine. It's just they're going to quit in a few months, you know, October. Microsoft is going to quit providing security updates. It's just not worth running the old software insecure unless you got it locked up. You know, I've still got some old XP machines around that I use, but the internet connections are turned off. You can run XP, you know, and run the old software, but you just don't want to hook it to the internet where you're liable to get hacked, I'll call it. So let's open her up, see what we got here. And I'll just say is I've got my good old Radio Shack anti-static mat here and a wrist strap. Put that on here to start opening up. So it looks like a pretty nice board. I said there's one power connector up on top. It's got a video slot. It's got one expansion slot. One of the reasons I didn't pay extra for a bigger board with more slots is that this processor has some limitations in what it supports. And so I could have bought a board with more slots, but this 8500, according to its specs, you'd lose some of the SATA ports for hard drives. And for this one, I'm not going to put, for right now anyway, I'm not going to put solid state drives on the motherboard. I have 3 hard drives, conventional ones, and I'm going to plug them right into the SATA ports and rock and roll, because I don't really need to go to SSD right now. As I said, this one's budget and simple and it's working. I want to move my Windows 10 over to this, bring everything up and make it work, and then sometime in the near future, as I need to, I'll switch it to 11. First off is processor, and again, one of the things I watch out for, especially on a budget, is I like to buy the processors that come along with a matched cooler. I've bought aftermarket coolers and I use aftermarket coolers, but so you get a CPU, some instructions here. I've been through this routine a few times. So there's the cooler fan. It's got heatsink pre-applied. Heatsink grease, I should call it. Should attach to my motherboard quite nicely. Unlatch this one. And then there's an arrow on here that matches the arrow on there. And we set that processor right in the slot. It's only supposed to be able to go one way. The instructions say not to worry about the cover, that it will pop off when you, like that, when you drop the lever back in place. So before I put the cooler on, I'm going to go ahead and install the memory. And it says it's a combo. It's got Intel's XMP or AMD's Expo. If you want to overclock it, it's got the overclocking profiles built in. Now, one thing I've learned from Gigabyte is that, I don't know if everybody's board does this, but they have a preferred set of slots that they want you to put the memory in if you're only using 2 of the 4. You got to make sure you get the slot in the right spot, but it's marked on the board. They want you to put memory in slot 2 first. So there's A12, A1, A2, B1, B2, and they want you to use A2 and B2. So A2 is this guy right here. And interesting with this board is, and I don't remember this being the case before. Normally you have a latch on both sides, and then you latch it in place. This one it's fixed on one side and a movable latch only on the other side. So that's just different, but you line it up so it only goes the right way. And we push her down in until she latches in. We'll put the other one in here. Gigabyte says they're foolproof and can only go one way. Then we need to take off these brackets for the cooler. Some of the coolers hook on the plastic bracket, and some screw in instead. And this socket is already bolted to the board, so we can take these 4 off. Lift these guys off of here. And the fan, CPU fan connector is over here. Not really. Okay, I'd rather do it this way. So we'll set the screws there. And push them a little bit because there's springs on them. Get them all started. And my preference is to make them good, take them down fairly evenly. And then that one, as I said, that one is CPU fan. So, and that's pretty much all there is to it, to the basic installation of the board. I don't, on the previous ones I've done, I've used RAID, redundant drives to have less issues with losing data if a hard drive stops. On this one, I just back it up periodically, and there's really not a lot of data to lose. So I just keep a fresh backup around, and it'll run with the SATA drives, but only a single. I'm not going to run RAID on this one. So this should be really easy. Plug it in. I have to hook up the switches on the case, the audio connectors and so forth on the case, and the power supplies. And being that this is not an ATX board, I may have to move some of the attachment points. But let's see what it takes here to get this apart. Shouldn't be too hard. Disconnect the 8-pin for the power supply. Want to make sure as I take these apart that they go back correctly. There's an LED for the case, a hard drive LED, and again it's plugged in with black plus, so that's consistent. There's power LEDs, plus and minus, and they're labeled black. Power switch and reset. Okay, so we get those all out of the way. Lift that one out. And there she is. It's a nice board. Gigabyte that's been running for well over 10 years without missing a beat. It's a shame to take a nice running board like that and set it out, but I guess it'll go in my spare parts pile for now. tuck it in an anti-static bag to protect it a little. Now the trick is I'm going to need to line up from the new board. I'm going to need to line up these standoffs and get standoffs in the right place to support the new board, because they'll be in just a little bit different spot. Okay, well, I've had this apart, or I've had the board sitting in and out about half a dozen times just to be sure. This one takes 8 standoffs, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this one is even staggered from that one. I had to really look hard at the board to see where these holes were. And then, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But what we'll do here, what I'm going to do is set it here, like so. And I can see the brass standoff through each hole. If you get too many, if you missed one, it wouldn't be too horrible perhaps, but you don't want to have an extra one, say out here in the middle, that contacts something on the back of your board, hits a solder joint and shorts it and burns out your board. So it's really, really important to get these things all lined up right. Put the I/O shield in there. And this board has 2 display ports and an HDMI. It says it can run 3 monitors at once. Now I'm not sure if the CPU will actually do that or not, but based on the one that I chose, I'm saying. But I kind of think it might. I'll make sure that snaps in all the way so it doesn't come falling out. But okay, in she goes. That looks pretty good. Alright, well, I got to go through and run 8 screws now. And some of these screws are a little tough because they're really off in the corner, so my computer kit's got one of these little gripper tools in, so I can kind of sneak back here in the corner and get that one started. Don't want to get these in too tight before you get them all in. Still got a couple more to go here. Okay, so I've been fiddling around. On this board, the USB 3s come in horizontally from the back instead of vertically, so I had to fish the wire through the cage behind the hard drive. I've got the 3 SATA drives all plugged in. And I got I don't think it matters, I got the operating system on 0 and then 1 and so forth. So I have lots of extra headers that I don't really need for right now. There's one here for the front audio jacks, and it only goes on one way. And it's a 3-pin jobby, which should still plug in here on system fan on the 3 pins of. So CPU power goes up here to the top. Main motherboard connector. I'll try to hold the board a little bit while I push that in. Okay, I heard it click. Just don't like to flex the board too hard because you risk cracking a solder joint if you flex too hard. Drives are hooked up, front panel. These connectors were basically the same as my old board. Just the power switch, reset switch, and so forth. My drives were already hooked to the hard drive, so I didn't need to, to the power supply, so I didn't need to do anything with them. They're all plugged in. I ought to be able to put power on it and boot it up here. Make one last check, and then I'm going to plug it into some hardware, and we'll see if it'll light up. Okay, got a monitor and a keyboard up here, and a mouse on a regular mouse pad, because I learned last time you can't put it on something red. Let's see if she'll light up on us. Turn on the power supply. Got fans. The memory stick's lit up. Well, the monitor's not seeing anything yet, but we'll give it a minute. Got a beep. New CPU corrupted, or yeah, TPM needs to be reset. Well, I'm going to tell it to go ahead. Should be able to go up, get up and go here. Let's try this again. Yeah, not happy. Alright, well, let's try this one. Let's do a power cycle and see if we can get her to come up again. There we go. Now we're in. Memory status looks good. BIOS is F31. I think that's... Oh, it says no bootable device found. But it has all 3 drives showing. Let's try enabling CSM support. That's supposed to be backwards compatibility. I just don't understand why it won't read a SATA drive. Well, I think I'm having trouble because my hard drive is still an old master boot record MBR format. And everything seems to want to run GPT these days. These motherboards have a legacy mode, which the first 2 computers I built in the last year, I ran in legacy mode until I got certain things going, and they would run there just fine. But this one, with the new processor, it's a newer processor with the video on it. If you put it in legacy mode, it won't even post. It won't power up. I mean, the fans run, but that's as far as you get. So, I got a couple other ways I'm going at this, but I got to double check, because what I want to do, I've cleared the CMOS, and I'm going to start over again. Now let's try it this way. I took my hard drive down to another computer, and I used Paragon's Partition Magic program that said that, after a good backup, that said that it would convert MBR to GPT, but it gave me a warning message that it might not boot, so I'm kind of nervous. But let's see what we got here. Well, it says getting devices ready. It looks like I was successful. And then, see if we're doing all right. And then I have already downloaded to this drive a stack of motherboard drivers that need to be installed. They're all there. So once it gets this set up and we're going, I can do that. So the answer is, before you do this, if you have a hard drive that's formatted in the old school MBR master boot record instead of the newer GPT partitioning method, I should say, I would say you want to change it before you put it on the new motherboard. Find a way to do the update. Third-party tool or something. And in this case, my third-party tool was this. And this was a free version of the Paragon's Partition Magic tool, version 17 or 18. Because with that, she's booting right up and prepping. It's going through a reboot now. Well, looks like we're up. Okay, so at this stage, I downloaded all of the utilities and drivers that Gigabyte had for this board. Chipset drivers, utilities, LAN, audio, so they're all here. I'm not going to have you sit here and watch all of this, but I'm going to go through each one of these sets of drivers and extract them and install them. So at this stage, it's up and running. Got a normal screen. All the hard drives are back in place. All the cables are connected. System's going. I went into BIOS and tuned the fan a little bit to keep things quieter. And the only real hang-up I had was that the MBR, the master boot record formatted drive, didn't want to run. Now, I've run these with my other Gigabyte boards and my other Ryzen 7 processors, but for some reason this 8000 series with this board, I just couldn't do that. I had to get it over to GPT first. And as life goes on, MBR drives were prevalent through like Windows XP and even into Vista and 7, when you were using 32-bit operating systems. And as we got into 8 and 10 and started moving from 32-bit into 64, the 64-bit stuff, and going forward, they really want you to use GPT. And I think by the time we get to Windows 11, they'll have to be GPT format partitioned. The tool that I used, and I should have probably used ahead of time, was this one. Now I also know that right now I'm not hooked to the internet, but once I get hooked up, Windows will deactivate. I'll have to go do activation. But before I started this process, I went into my Microsoft account and made sure this computer was connected. So I should be able to go and transfer the license. See, I still have my other two drives here that are, these hold video, and they're still MBR drives that I'll have to convert. This one is now GPT, and if you wanted to convert one of these, you click on it and you come over here where it says convert MBR to GPT, and you want to have a good backup, like if it's your operating drive. And I got a warning message from this program that said that it wouldn't boot if I used it to move a Windows, to convert a Windows version. But it was fine, it did. And going forward, I'm going to go and convert these other drives back over to GPT, so everything is. This motherboard will read those drives. I don't have any problem with that so far. That's how you do a low budget version of this computer. And I think this one's going to work fine. So, hey, just a follow up or epilogue on getting this new computer up and going. It's working. I've now had it running for a couple of days. All the drivers are loaded. I've got it backed up, so I'm good if anything happens. Seems to be working just fine. And I would use this one again. I've just got to go back to the beginning and say, before you start with this board and processor, use something, some third-party tool or whatever you have to do, Microsoft tool, the partition magic that I used, and convert your MBR drive. If you have one that's still MBR, convert it to GPT form before you try to load it up over here. Had I done that, this one would have loaded right up and run. Now, last thing I want to say is, oh goodness, Microsoft, activation. I said when I left that I was going to go activate it. Big deal. This is my third conversion in the last year or so. The first one was a piece of cake. These last two have been, this is the second time now in a few months where I couldn't reactivate my retail Windows 10 license with a hardware update. And the symptom is that you go into the settings page and for activation, and it says that it needs to be activated. Before I started this, I went into my Microsoft account and made sure that this computer was showing up in my Microsoft account. Should be easy, right? So you go in and it gives you an error code that says hardware has changed. Well, duh, yeah, of course it has. And then it says, well, hit the troubleshooter. So you hit the troubleshooter, and the troubleshooter has a link that says, something to the effect that if hardware has changed, hit this one. And the first thing it does is it goes out to lunch and it says that none of the servers are available. And I spent the better part of a day into a second day with this error screen coming up saying, well, the servers are all busy, we can't help you. Then I finally got there. And then the screen gives me a list of computers that are in my account, and this one isn't in there. So now what, right? So there are supposed to be some options. You can hit a second link to contact them, and it should bring up a page with phone numbers, contact information that you could call Microsoft and have somebody pick up the phone. Well, that page is blank too. Just like my last computer, this is a duplicate of what happened to me last time. So I ended up hitting the one button that's available that says, give me your phone number, give Microsoft your phone number, and they'll call you back. Now the last time, I was a little nervous because the last time I got a call in the middle of the night and woke me up at 1 or 2 in the morning to fix this. This time, to Microsoft credit, I got a call back from their automated system within 2 or 3 minutes. And it put me in a queue, and after about 5 minutes I was talking to somebody who could help me. And it was interesting because we went through the whole scenario, and she said, well, look at the list. What's on the top of the list? And it was my wife's laptop with Windows 11 on it, actually. And she said, just hit that one. And so I did. I kind of protested a little bit. I said, but that's not the one I want. She said, it's okay. It'll kickstart the activation process and it'll work. And so I kickstarted it, and it worked. And it activated, and all was good. She said, you really shouldn't have to do this because it's in your Microsoft account, and it should have automatically done that, which it didn't. So anyway, it's up. I was a little worried about my wife's becoming inactivated, but I know hers was a factory build laptop that, it's coded in the BIOS, right? It's coded in the chip. So its license is tied to the motherboard. So for whatever reason, that was the recommendation for Microsoft, and it worked. So I think I'm all good, but be aware that, right, I moved my license. I have a license on here for Office 2021, a freestanding license, not Office 365. And it was quite easy to go in there, and it had a list of my computers that have Office on them, and it said, pick the one that you want to hook to, which was the one I had before, and I hit the button, and off we went, and it was fine. But for some reason, the operating system activation is just being troublesome. So, long story, but just be aware if you're building one these days that activation has gotten clunky. It used to be fine. A year ago I did this and it was like 2 minutes, hit the troubleshooter, picked what you wanted, and it was done. But something's not working right. Last thing, I made a note that comment as I was building that this one is supposed to have multiple monitor support. 2 DisplayPort and an HDMI, and behind me here is a second monitor that is plugged into DisplayPort, and so right now I'm running 2 monitors on DisplayPort, and I have the choice of the standard settings where I can use one monitor that's extended from the other, or whether it's duplicated. So that function really works, and works pretty well. I may still come to the day where I want to put a solid state drive on here and shorten up the boot times and things, but for right now, as a budget build for doing what it's doing, running the old mechanical hard drives seems to be fine, and I've got enough memory, the machine's working great. So thanks for watching, and that's all for now.